Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode. We're breaking down the 7 details you missed in the season finale of Game of Thrones. Last night, Game of Thrones season finale went out with an icy blast of Arctic dragon's breath, and hopefully that was enough to keep you cool as we enter the longest Game of Thrones drought in recorded history. That is right. In case you hadn't heard, the series probably won't return until 2019. That's ridiculous. But if 2 years seems like an unbearably long time to wait, don't worry, last night's episode was jam-packed with so many secrets and Easter eggs that it would take the finest maesters in all of Westeros a lifetime to unpack them all. And we're here to get your studies started with the top 7 things you missed in the Game of Thrones season finale. Oh, and what's that? Someone just blew the spoiler horn, meaning if you don't want to get spoiled. So first off, we are spilling all the Jon Snow tea, but guess what? It ain't even Jon Snow tea anymore, y'all. It's Aegon tea. Now, we now know that Jon's birth name is actually Aegon Targaryen. If that sounds familiar, it should, because he's not the first person in the history of the Seven Kingdoms to hold that moniker. And the old family name could spell new problems for the latest heir to the Iron Throne. As Joanna Robinson in Vanity Fair points out, the original Aegon was kind of like the Westerosi George Washington. He founded the nation by swooping in on his dragon and forcing the warring houses to come together. So this could definitely be setting up the artist formerly known as Jon Snow to follow in his forebear's footsteps and eventually reunite the fractured kingdom. Plus, old school Aegon was super into incest, which, as we saw last night, Jon also seems to be developing a taste for. See what I did there? But hey, that brings us to our second detail. Now let's not forget that we wouldn't know any of this if it weren't for the combined efforts of our new favorite detective team, Sam and the Three-Eyed Raven.
I don't know what that means.
Oh yeah, and maybe they had a little help from their faithful girl Friday, Gilly. Or really, all the help, since she's the one that literally found that information. But Sam Brand's combined research skills have effectively created Westeros' biggest information bank, unseating the stodgy maesters as the keepers of all knowledge. This season, we saw Sam go from the crappy, immovable pages and attitudes of the Citadel to the super high-speed, all-access information highway located at threeeyedraven.com, and we can already see how thrilled he is to make a difference in the world beyond counting steps and shits. Steps. Librarians and researchers finally have a superhero in Bran who is shaking off his sulking vagaries to confirm the important info we've all been waiting to hear out loud, that Jon Snow is the true heir to the Iron Throne. With Sam now in place to be Bran's guy in a chair and help him put that vast knowledge of the past to use, watching the two up-and-coming curators of Westerosi history put together proof of Jon's true heritage was super satisfying, and now we'll have to wait for Season 8 to see if Gilly ever gets a promotion for highlighting that Rhaegar annulment detail so that it was fresh in Sam's memory. Coming in at number 3, speaking of incredible memories, elephants are coming! We're talking about Cersei sending her pretend bae Euron to go retrieve the Golden Company, an army that, amongst other things, employs a pack of powerful pachyderms. Elephants actually have a small but colorful presence in the books, doing stuff like goring a bunch of wolves in a fight and tearing a dude apart as a means of execution. So we're excited to hopefully see them in action next season. That sounds dire. Next up at number 4, the Ice Dragon. Viserion's new allegiance to the Night King has brought up a few key questions. For example, how is he able to fly with holes in his wings? What is Ice Dragon breath? Is it still fire, like a regular dragon's breath, or is it concussive blasts of charged ice and air? We've previously done some research on the frosty beast that appears in George R.R. Martin's children's book, The Ice Dragon, which is not directly connected to the Game of Thrones novels, but is in a similar fantasy setting. If Viserion's zombie dragon breath is anything like his ice dragon cousins, then as Sir George R.R. explains in A World of Ice and Fire, he breathes cold, a chill so terrible that it can freeze a man solid in half a heartbeat. Looks like George will have to update that passage to include cutting a giant magic ice wall in half, because how can ice breath melt a wall? Another major ice dragon question is, if the Night King can ride dragons, does that mean he is a secret Targaryen? Well, no. The folks at Elite Daily rounded up info that disproves this theory, mainly that the Targaryens didn't exist way back when the White Walkers were created by the Children of the Forest, so no, the Night King is almost certainly not a Targaryen, he just has a lot of sweet, sweet skills. Now, the 5th detail from the season finale is Cleganebowl! We need to have an air horn. Cleganebowl! That is right. Even though the brother-on-brother showdown didn't happen in the season finale, we got the Clegane brothers' first face-to-undead-face moment since their unfinished season 1 fight, and we think the Hound's cryptic, really not so cryptic, message to his big bro, "That's not how it ends for you, brother. You know who's coming for you. You've always known," could mean that it is Sandor himself who's coming for Gregor, and they will finally finish their long-standing family business in season 8. In contrast to the lack of brotherly love, we had another great face-to-face moment with the Hound and someone who's done him bodily harm in the past, Brienne of Tarth. It was very touching to see the Hound and Brienne actually bond over Arya's badassery, and it shows us that the Hound is not one to hold a grudge, even when someone has left him for dead. Now coming in at number 6, if you're like us, you stood up and cheered when Theon finally grew a pair of balls, thanks mostly to his lack of them. But you may not realize that his plan to save his sister could have some unexpected consequences for Cersei's master plan. Let's say Theon does manage to track down the Iron Fleet, board the ship, and kill his uncle. Will the Ironborn then follow the person who killed the person in charge? If the beatdown on the beach is any indication, we're thinking yes. So if Yara and Theon do retake control of the fleet, then all of a sudden Cersei has no one to shepherd the Golden Company back to King's Landing. And finally, can we talk about Tyrion creeping around the halls of Jon and Dany's incest cruise? A lot of fans are asking why the half-man is looking completely bummed, and the obvious answer is that, like every other man that goes to work for Dany, he's fallen in love with her. But what if there's also a darker reason for it? What if he's secretly betrayed her and he's starting to feel bad about it? You probably noticed we never saw the end of the Cersei-Tyrion sparring match. It just cuts off, then cuts back to the dragon pit, where all of a sudden everything's super cool. Maybe what we actually missed was Tyrion cutting some sort of deal with his big sis, which would be an act of treason against his new queen. Think about it. Just a few scenes prior, we heard him extolling the virtues of lying to Jon Snow, plus he freely admits that he does not want to destroy his family. Maybe he got persuaded to rejoin the Lannisters when he realized a new generation of lions was on the way. And in the books, Dany has a prophecy that she will be betrayed by a lion. Now that could refer to the betrayal Cersei is plotting right now, but it could also mean that Dany's hand is getting ready to stab her in the back. But what do you folks think? Are there any details that we missed? How will you deal with the delay for season 8? And where is Bronn and Pod? And oh yeah, Littlefinger died last night. Does anybody actually give a flying F about that storyline? Answer, yes, I do totally, because I did not want Arya and Sansa to hate each other. I needed them to come together. Let's discuss. And special thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's Nerdist News. Squarespace has launched 16 stunning new templates this summer to help you make your next move on that big idea, whether it's your side hustle or your ring gig. They make it easy to create an eye-catching website with their all-in-one platform where all of your business needs are easily taken care of. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com/nerdistnews. Use the promo code NerdistNews to get 10% off of your first purchase.